Welcome to Season 5 of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast with Adina, Brian, Cris, and Steve, the biggest sci-fi podcast in the galaxy. The adventure is just beginning here at the Big Sci-Fi Podcast, and we invite you to come aboard the Starship Tangent. We know you'll enjoy the conversation, the laughter, the banter back and forth, and most of all, friends who love hanging out to talk about all things science fiction. Set your phasers to fun. Here we go.
Hello, and a big welcome to all our fantastic listeners of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast. Today's episode is one we've been eagerly anticipating for over 6 months. We first met our wonderful guest at Trek Long Island last May, had everything lined up for an interview, and then, as fate would have it, the SAG-AFTRA strike happened. Now, but good things come to those who wait, and I'm thrilled to say we're back on track. Joining us today is the incredibly talented Isa Briones. To all you Star Trek enthusiasts, you'll recognize her from Star Trek Picard, where she brilliantly played multiple roles. The androids Daj, Soji, Sutra, I think I pronounced that one right too, and in the second season, Corey. I've always been in awe of actors who can bring different layers to the same character, and Isa does this with such finesse. And we're definitely going to delve into that today. And we'll also be chatting about her recent role as Margot Stokes in the Disney Plus Hulu series Goosebumps, and generally talk about Isa's journey from growing up in a family of performers to her diverse career spanning stage and screen, which is nothing short of inspiring. So without further ado, let's welcome Isa to our show. Hi.
Hi, thank you guys for having me. So happy we can finally do this.
Yes. So, right, because, we met you and some other amazing people at Trek Long Island, and then shortly thereafter, that's when everything went kaplooey.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Very, I guess, expectedly, because the writer's strike had, I think, already started at that point.
Yeah.
So we knew something was coming, but yeah, that was a very interesting few months for everyone in the business. But yeah, I think
what did you do to occupy your time? What were you, what was life like for you during that?
It's funny because it felt obviously, very, very different. It feels kind of minimizing to compare the two, but just the effect on artists, I think, felt very similar to like when COVID first happened, where it's just like, wow, everything has shut down so suddenly. And like, what do we do? And it was such a kind of strange, familiar territory from the last couple of years. And I think in a way I had kind of practice at it because of the last couple of years. I mean, during COVID is when I realized I am a creative being and I need a creative outlet. So when I don't have acting or singing or something like that, I need to fill it with something else. And I was able to find art, and I started doing more visual art, and that was kind of how I stayed sane. And so this time around, when the strike happened, I had that as like a creative outlet to lean on, but it was also just, a lot of picketing and conversations, and there was a lot of misinformation out there at the time, and the media painting it as this crazy thing that actors were trying to ask for living wages yeah, so it was definitely an important time of just kind of talking and spreading the actual information of what we were fighting for. And thanks to the amazing people at SAG-AFTRA, we have reached a deal, and I feel like I speak for a lot of people when we say we're very grateful for what we got to, and so happy to continue. We love.
Yeah. Now that that's over and it's past, is it everything back to the way it was, or is it different, or?
I think what I'm experiencing right now is it's an interesting kind of crawl back to, because the strike ended and then it was the holidays, so that's always kind of downtime in this business. So I think it was kind of nice as like a way to be like, okay, that is over. Now we can celebrate with our loved ones. And then like come January, that's when we're starting to push and be like, okay, how do we get back to what we were doing? And it's still in process because, people weren't writing, people weren't doing these things. Like we need to kind of slowly gear up again. But I think it's kind of returning to form. It's taking a second, but it was definitely a bummer during the strike that was when Goosebumps premiered on Disney Plus and Hulu. And so it was definitely sad that we couldn't talk about the show, because it was something that all of us were so proud of and really excited about. But the strike did end like the week before the final episode came out.
Okay.
So we did get to at least post about it at some point. But that was one of the sadder things, was just that we couldn't kind of commune together as a family, like the whole production, and really celebrate what we did. But we've been able to celebrate from afar, and people still got to see it, and people showed up and gave us a lot of love, and we're really, really grateful for that.
Yeah,
Excellent.
we were sorry, Dina, had the pleasure of having Michelle on and John Billingsley. Was it right as the strike was? It was during the strike.
During the strike,
wasn't it?
Well, Michelle was just before, and John and some folks were on during, because we were helping to promote to help educate folks on what was really happening with the strike. Yeah.
Okay. But to hear them talk about it in a way that really helped us fans understand it better was so helpful. And I know there were people doing that throughout throughout podcast land as a way to help get the word out. And it was just very helpful for us to wrap our minds around it, because there was a lot of misinformation.
Yeah, and it's
incredible.
It's not a very accessible information at the beginning, and so of course people didn't understand it. But I will say, I think when I was going to conventions, it was a strange time, because obviously we couldn't talk about the things that we were there to celebrate.
Right.
But people would come up, and the amount of love that we were getting from fans saying, like, we support you, we stand with you. Like, I just want to say to any fans listening, like, thank you so much, because that was so felt and so inspiring, and a reminder that, like, we should not give up and should not settle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a thing that was so dear to many people's hearts.
Yeah.
Was standing up for our rights, but for just fair treatment, to be treated fairly.
Very Star Trek,
Right. Yep.
That is a core theme of so many of those stories, is fighting for what's right, fighting for equality and inclusion, and for just fairness. And I think that resonated with so many people in a big way.
So speaking of Star Trek, I'm so anxious to talk about Picard.
Can we please?
Yes. Well, the thing that's really on my mind is the role you played. It wasn't just one role. It was so many different roles, different sides to the same character. And I think my first question is, when you were auditioning, did you know how that was going to play out? What did you know at the time?
Not quite. When I was first auditioning, I was first like self-taping for it, because I was on tour at the time with Hamilton, and I was sending in self-tapes.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Yes. Did you not read my notes?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was that was kind of my first bigger job. I was 19 doing Hamilton, and I knew I was leaving after a year, because I did that for a year, and I knew that I was going to leave, and I had been auditioning, and I had these self-tapes for a secret Star Trek thing that mysteriously Sir Patrick Stewart was a part of. And I was like, oh, okay. So then I had been sending in tapes, and like multiple, and then finally they said, Patrick saw your tape and really loved it, and he and the rest of the team would love for you to come in LA. And I was finishing my run in Hamilton on a Sunday, and then I flew out Monday to LA and had my final call back on Tuesday.
Wow.
And I was sitting in the room, and the casting director, amazing Liz Dean, love you, shout out. She came out to kind of say hi to me and be like, "Don't be nervous, like it's all good." And she was like, "Yeah, so really what they're looking for is kind of about like, the thing with like your sister and blah blah blah." And I was like, "My sister, huh?" And she was like, "Yeah, your twin sister. Like, well, you would be playing, but." And I was like, "Oh, no one told me that." So from that audition, I found out, okay, I'd be playing twins, but I still didn't know exactly the breadth of that. I didn't realize that it was going to be
Wow.
Daj for one episode, and then it was going to be Soji. And um, yeah, it was very much like a snowball effect where I just kind of was learning as I went. And then once I was cast, I then found out, okay, so I kind of have these sisters in separate boxes and I'm never like really interacting with myself. And I think that kind of made crafting the characters and making them distinct kind of
Hmm.
easier, because I was kind of taking them one at a time. Like I was with Daj for like a month, or not even a month, maybe like 2, 3 weeks. And then I got to say goodbye to her. And then it was like now time to focus on Soji and create a new character. Um, and then Sutra just came out of nowhere. I mean, like once you're that deep into filming, we were on episode 8. And like, because things were at that point, things are getting a little crazy, scripts are getting to you a little late, and you're just working day and night. You don't even know what you're filming tomorrow. You're just looking when you're in the makeup trailer, like, oh, what am I doing tomorrow? And we got a new script for episode 9. And I'm like in the makeup trailer, they're fixing my hair, blah, 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 and I'm reading, and I'm like, Sutra? Who's Sutra? Like, who is this chick? And then I read it, and it's like, she looks remarkably like Soji. And I was like, here we go. Here's another one.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So did Brent Spiner uh, have any feedback for you? Because that's something he's known for in Star Trek is playing different roles. Was there any interaction there, or did he just kind of let you do your thing? And
Well, when I first met Brent, it was funny. It was a photo shoot day. We were doing
Mm.
like a kind of promo shoot, and I met him. And the first time I met him, he was in full Data
Oh my
book.
goodness.
So it was just so
Awesome.
surreal. Um, and he was so lovely. I mean, he's the best. And we were just getting to know each other, and really it became clear. And also from the creative team, they made it clear you are not supposed to be a remake of Data. You
Mm.
are not recreating anything that's been done before. You are your own entity, but you do carry this legacy. And so that's more the vehicle that Soji is. And so that doesn't really mean like, oh, how do I become like him? But what are
Yeah.
some things that I can bring to the character that honor that legacy? And one thing that they definitely wanted was the Data head tilt, every once in a while, just to not to like hammer it away, but just be like, this is there. So you have this thing kind of um, anchoring you to Data. And that was one thing that I think I didn't even ask him. I was afraid. I was like, oh, this is going to be so embarrassing if I have to ask him, like, hey, can I have help? But he, I think, saw that it was in the script, and he's like, hey, do you need any help? Like, he asked me. And
Wow.
I was like, I mean, that would be amazing. And then he just kind of like did it with me. And he was like, but make it your own. Like, do your thing. And from that moment on, it's, with such an established legend actor like that, I think it's always the mark of a really wonderful mentor when they're not super mentoring
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
they're not
Hmm.
overbearing. It's just like, I'm here supporting
Yeah.
you. And if you have questions, I'm here, but I trust you. And
That's
that's
fabulous.
what I felt from him, and also from Patrick and from everyone there.
Hmm.
How much Star Trek were you aware of before even auditioning? Like, did you ever
I
watch the show or?
I unfortunately, I didn't grow up with Trek. I was always aware of it because, it's hard. I think you have to live under a rock to not be
Yes.
aware of Star Trek. But yeah, I didn't grow up with the earlier shows. But the one thing that I always knew was that it was kind of at the forefront of diversity in Hollywood and from the beginning, and knowing first interracial kiss and on screen, and coming from a mixed family, having an Asian father, like George Takei was such an icon in our home. And so I was always aware of his impact, and that bleeding into Star Trek. And but once I was cast, that was really what started my fandom. I then started watching TNG. I wasn't really going through all of it because that's a lot to get through in like 2 weeks leading up to filming. But I would kind of bop around, and at the time it was on Netflix, and I was like looking at the thumbnails and being like, okay, what looks like Data is in this the most? And
Oh, see, you should have come to us because we could have told you exactly what episodes and what order and which ones you're going to get the most out of.
Because she knew us before.
The first one that I watched, that was one with Data's daughter.
Oh, the Offspring.
Yeah, Offspring. And I couldn't believe that I landed on that first. Like I was just kind of going through. And I don't think I even knew exactly what the tagline of it was. I just watched it and I was like, oh my God, this is the perfect one to watch. And I think that episode, also directed by the amazing Jonathan Frakes.
His first one. That was the first one he directed too.
And he believed. And that, I mean, that episode was so moving. I cried, of course. That being my first real exposure to Data and his legacy.
Wow.
Was so just informing, where I was just like, oh, this is so much bigger than just some job. It was a huge thing. I mean, it was my first big TV role, but like for this to be so important to so many people, and for it to tackle such complex themes that are so relevant to today. That really just kind of opened my mind to, wow, this experience is going to be really amazing. And
a follow-up to that, if I can.
Yeah.
We've asked other Trek actors this. Did you have any idea about the fandom in what it would mean for you to have such hopefully rich and fun encounters with so many fans, and that probably for the rest of your life, if you choose to go there to the conventions, you'll have that available? Did you know that when you started? Did someone say, hey, get ready?
No, truly, that's the first thing that anyone says to you.
Oh, wow, really?
Like, I mean, I knew that Star Trek has a huge fan base. I mean, I feel like Trekkies invented fandom.
But, pretty much, yeah.
And so I knew that going into it, but no, once I started working on the show, anytime I was working with one of the legacy cast members, that was the first thing they said. They were like, that these fans are going to follow you for life.
Right.
This is your family now. Like this is, and it's what everyone said, and it's true. It remains true. And I mean, it's been years since I've done Star Trek now. Not that many years, obviously, but still, people are still so engaged and still care so much and keep following you throughout your career. And it's really so beautiful.
Yep. 20 years from now, we'll still want to talk to you about Star Trek.
Yeah.
30
and
years
hopefully
from now,
other stuff too. Hopefully some other cool stuff.
Yeah, but definitely Star Trek. It's a given now. It is an absolute given. So then in season 2, you played this other character, Corey, and then you were really working on stage with Brent Spiner like a lot or on screen. And so how is season 1 and season 2 like different?
It's very different. I think The funny thing, the way that it was like similar was that I started season 1 very isolated because I was on the board cube. So it was like really just me and Harry Treadaway and then eventually me and Patrick. But like I wasn't with the rest of the cast until the last like 3 episodes. And similarly, this like Corey is literally isolated. And yeah, it was all with Brent. I mean, he was the only person I saw on set most days. And yeah, it was definitely a different, it was interesting to kind of backtrack because I had played these characters who were modeled after this girl that I played in season 2. So it was kind of like, whoa, we're literally traveling back in time, but I'm going back to the original.
Yeah.
And that's also exciting in kind of in sort of a selfish little way where I'm like, wow, I'm getting even deeper ingrained into the Star Trek lore. Like this goes all the way back to this time, and she was there, and yeah, so it was interesting to be like, whoa, I'm going back to the person who started all of these subsequent synths, and like, what does that mean? Who is she if she is kind of who everyone is modeled after?
Yeah. I was surprised too in season 2. We need to let Cris jump in. He's probably dying to say something. But I was gripped as a father in season 2 with how your character could not be exposed to sunlight directly.
Yeah.
That was strangely almost not terrifying, but disturbing to me as a father myself.
Yeah.
To go, oh my gosh, what if that was my daughter? You know, to have those feelings really came out really well. The scenes between you and Brent were just fantastic.
And it's a very obviously complicated father-daughter relationship. That there's a lot there that's like, yeah, there's love, but also, is it love? Is it hubris? Is it what? Like, it's a lot of things. And it was also interesting to play that character after the pandemic had happened, and to be like, oh, this character is isolated by herself. She can't go outside, which we as a people had just experienced for 2 years. So I think that definitely bled into that character and that storyline in that season.
Wow.
So speaking of, parent feelings about things. So I did watch the first episode of Goosebumps. And as a parent, one of the things that struck me was there was a scene that you eat a peanut.
Yes.
Your character eats peanuts. My older son is anaphylactic to peanuts. Yep. So I'm sitting there, like my look on my face, I'm just I am horrified because that is literally my nightmare.
You're like, oh God. Yeah. No, that was an intense day because that was like one of the first days that we had, and Rob Hubel, who played my dad, I played his daughter. He's the best person to work with. I love him. He is the funniest person you've ever met. But there were a lot of moments where I was like, this works. Like we got a father-daughter kind of energy going on, and I love that. But yeah, what can I say? I have just a track record of playing the troublesome daughter. Can't control her.
Well, but in this case, it was not, your fault. And that's to me, that's the actual nightmare, because like my child is very conscientious about his food allergies, and to have something happen completely out of his control, is just, terrifying. That is the nightmare. That's terrifying. Yep.
By the way, it's amazing the first episode of TNG you watched was Offspring.
I know.
And it was just talk about needle in a haystack. And
I think the next one was Measure of a Man.
Measure of a Man. Yeah. Good. every Data episode is iconic.
Did you say every episode Data's in?
No, like every Data-centric.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like Data's Day, Brothers. Brothers is one of my favorite. And partly it's one of my favorite because Brent Spiner plays the three characters in the one scene, which just blows my mind that's like technically technically I understand, but the fact that he's able to do it so convincingly that you believe that there are three unique people in that room. That's
incredible.
Yes.
What were you gonna say?
I was just going to ask about, because with Trek, like I just can't imagine how actors do it with the dialogue. Did you struggle with the dialogue in the series?
Yeah. I'd say for Soji specifically, because she's very smart. And she's got a big girl job on the Borg cube, and so she's really saying a lot of stuff that I don't know. And then once she becomes activated, she just has this plethora of knowledge within her. She just knows everything. So that means I have to say everything. And I do not know everything. So I remember one of the first like rough days with dialogue. It was maybe it's episode 8, I think, I think it's episode 8 when I take over the La Serena. And I'm like, I've like blocked everyone off, and Santiago is yelling at me, trying to get me to stop, and I'm like beep booping on the console, and I'm saying all this jargon, and also I was in these shoes that were tripping me, and I kept like tripping over a step, and at a certain point I was just like, I just almost screamed because I was like, oh my God, I have so many words. But honestly, it was nothing compared to like Michelle. Michelle has to say so much stuff. I mean, security detail is always like the most jargon. And I would just watch in awe. And we had some days where we'd just be like, I'm going crazy. But yeah.
Did you have what was your process to work through those heavy scripts?
I mean, at that point, it's just you become so like, you have to think, okay, this person knows this lingo like the back of their hand because this is their element. So it needs to sound so effortless. So at that point, you just need to be drilling it, so that it's coming out of your mouth like, yeah, I know this. I say this all the time.
Right.
But it really, I mean, but then honestly, one of the harder things to memorize and work on was the last couple episodes when I was playing Sutra, because that bitch is a monologuer. She loves a monologue. Oh God. And that was at a point when you're towards the end of the series, things are getting chaotic. The scripts are coming in the night before. And I remember I was going to shoot her like big monologue scene. And the night before, like, I had been waiting for revisions. They told me revisions were coming. And I had been waiting, and I was like, I have to wake up at 4 a.m. to get into hair and makeup. So I need to go to bed. So I went to bed at like 11, 12, and it still hadn't come in.
Wow.
The revisions came at 1 a.m. And of course I didn't see them. I was like, I need to
Oh no.
And so then I wake up they made the monologue so much longer. And I was like, oh my God, here we go. And so I'm in the makeup trailer while they're goldifying me, putting my wig on, and I'm just trying to drill these words. And that in a way is even harder because you want to drill it so you know it like the back of your hand, but also there's so much emotion behind it. It's not just I'm spouting out information. It's like this has a lot of weight. So I can't just be like reciting words. Like I need to have an opinion about the things I'm saying. So that is when, when it's crunch time, those are the more challenging days to really have a monologue down by 7 a.m.
That is
And you're
really
dealing with the
amazing.
makeup.
Yeah.
Huh?
Oh, so I was going to say, and you're dealing with the makeup, which I've heard
yeah.
like nothing but horror stories about.
I mean, thankfully, Brent dealt with the worst kind of era of that makeup because it was very new at the time. So he had like the powder gold on him that would just flake off and fall off, and they'd have to keep reapplying. And his contacts were terrible and he couldn't see. And I mean, my contacts weren't amazing either, but they were better. But I definitely, with the yellow contacts, they have to make the pupil so tiny. So really, you can only see out of 2 tiny little holes and the rest is just yellow. And I was in these crazy wedge heels walking on gravel. And I just I was like, whatever, like PA was there. I was like, I'm so sorry, but I'm going to be holding on to you while we walk to set because I can't see.
Wow.
Jeez.
It's amazing
Wow.
because, one of the things that I've been learning as I, talk to you and some of the other Trek actors is how little preparation you have for your dialogue. And having watched these shows for years, I find that just incredible what you're able to do with that little time. I'm in awe.
Us, like it was crazy, but still we had more time than TNG actors did. They were doing 23, 25 episodes in a season. So they're just working back to back to back there.
Right.
It's coming at them rapid fire. And at that point, you do experience kind of your brain gets used to it. Like when I'm working, the way I'm able to pick up dialogue, it's so much faster. So like when I'm working on a show and I have other auditions, it is kind of crazy how I'm like doing a self-tape and I'm like, how did I memorize that by just reading it once? But it's because your brain is in that zone where it's like, I have to memorize this now or I can't do my job.
I met a stage actor here in Canton, Ohio years ago when I was at a local university, and they brought him in. They had done months of rehearsals before he got there. It was The Unsinkable Molly Brown.
Yes.
And he was the main male lead character. And he said he ran through that only twice. He was in 2 rehearsals. Wow. He said he usually can just read the dialogue once or twice and he's got it. But the way his brain worked, he could walk through 2 rehearsals and be ready to go live performances. Just amazing.
Can't imagine. Not me. Could not. Could not be me.
Well, you still seem like you still.
Oh,
once you're working, you're getting in that rhythm. Yeah. Like I doubt. I wonder if this gentleman could do it with production like Hamilton. I would doubt it. He probably.
Well, but the thing
I have Hamilton memorized. If I have it memorized, anyone can have it memorized.
I have Empire's Fall. My fiance loves that, so we listen to it a lot when we cook.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like with musicals, it is easier to memorize because once you have it to a song, it's like we were able to memorize the alphabet because it was to a song, and like that is proven to help you memorize.
Well,
plays are hard, and I've never done a play except for high school, and that is a goal of mine to eventually do a play. But it's hard. And I'm terrified for hopefully when that day comes.
Well, I think the it's not just the fact that music is Hamilton, but it's more of a testament to how many times I've actually listened to it.
Oh yeah, no, and same. Before I did the show, I already knew all the words because I had listened. I mean, it came out when I was. When did it come out? I think I was
2016.
Yeah, I think I was
like... Was it 2016? I thought, around that time.
I was like 16, 17 when the album came out, and I listened to it every day.
Yep. So you played Peggy and
Mariah. Peggy, Mariah, and I understudied Eliza.
Oh, okay. Did you, with understudying, did you actually get to play Eliza?
Yeah, quite a bit. Eliza is a very challenging role. So there are a lot of times where the actress who usually plays Eliza will have to call out because it's very vocally demanding. And also, people go on vacation, so they need people to fill in. So yeah, they started doing that around when I joined, where the Peggy Mariahs would understudy Elizas, because it was just very common that they needed a lot of Eliza covers. And also there were a lot of people. Oh my God. The Zoom thing just gave a thumbs up to you guys.
I
And
saw that. I don't know where that came from.
That's cool.
Anyway,
That's
I've
new.
noticed recently, I was on a therapy session and I was like, here's my trauma. And then I did a little peace sign and then a bunch of balloons came up.
That's funny. That's funny.
Anyway.
Did you give us a thumbs up and then the
I
Zoom?
guess I did. I didn't realize
Wow.
I did, but I don't know. But yeah. And so also when I had been auditioning for Hamilton since I first moved to New York when I was 18. Dina's trying to do
No,
it.
Dina.
I see. Well, that's the thing. I'm a computer I'm a software engineer and engineer, so I need to know.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Well, see, that's the thing. There's the thing. It says
cool.
recognize.
What is this?
There's an
When was
option.
this put
There's an
into
option that
Zoom?
says recognize hand gestures, but it's not recognizing mine. Wait, can I do a heart?
The heart one is easiest to memorize.
This is great for audio listeners.
Yeah, the audio listeners are like, what the hell is going on?
We're playing with
So
Zoom.
you're saying
has features. There's features
but can I
here.
get this straight? So
was so when I was auditioning, I was 18 and I had been in multiple times. The way it often works is they call people in a lot because they especially at that time were rolling out different productions. Like the Broadway one was up. They were starting a first national tour, and then they were starting a second national tour, and then they had the Puerto Rico company, and they had all these different companies happening. So with that kind of rollout, they tend to keep calling people back kind of monthly to see where you're at and see where they can put you. And I had been auditioning for them for maybe 9 months, about one audition a month. And every time I would audition for Eliza, and they kept being like, really great job, you're too young. And I'd be like, awesome, that's fine, all good. And then they'd call me back the next month. And I'd be like, I'm not really getting much older. You're
a whole month older.
Like, it's not going to do much difference. But then that's when they were like, actually, we have a new thing where we have the Peggy Mariahs understudy Eliza so they can grow into Eliza. And that's kind of how it perfectly worked out for me. And yeah, I would go on as Eliza fairly often. And it was definitely one of those dream roles. And also getting to understudy it and be a cover, be anything is such a wonderful learning experience, because you also gain such appreciation for covers. Like, they are such unsung heroes. And swings jobs are to literally just wait backstage in case someone gets injured or needs to call out mid-show, get on stage. Like, it's a crazy job. And like, I had one time where I was on as Peggy Mariah, my usual track, and our Eliza had an emergency and had to call out for Act 2, but there were no other people in the building who could play Eliza because a bunch of people were on vacation. But there was someone who could cover Peggy Mariah. So I, at Act 2, went on as Eliza, and someone else came in as Peggy Mariah. The audience was so confused, but I had an awesome time and had a great story out of it.
Right.
So was this your first big musical production?
Yeah,
because that's wild. So this is your first musical is Hamilton. Your first TV show is Picard.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's insane.
That's pretty amazing.
It's insane. I mean, I had done local productions kind of the year before that, but that Hamilton was my first national production, that kind of thing. And no, I count myself very, very lucky that in those 2 years I did these two huge franchises. And in a way, Hamilton, prepped me for Star Trek in a way that I didn't expect, in that Hamilton has a pretty intense following fan base for a musical. And it's small compared to Trek, but it's still it kind of led me into like, oh, this is what it's like to have fans that will follow you for life, and also to play two characters in one show. I was doing that every night, switching between two characters, and then I got to do that multiple times over in Star Trek.
Oh, wow. So I have to ask,
Yeah.
what was it like covering Blue Skies?
Yeah.
Because that was just, I mean, that your version of that was just like so hauntingly beautiful and set the whole tone for that whole thing, and really honestly wrapped up a film that we have critically we've been a little hard on. But to have that be a part of that whole thing was just magnificent. I mean, it was just beautiful. What was it like covering that song?
Yeah, that was really special. They asked me to do that at the premiere. We were at the premiere, and Jeff Russo had come up to me and was like, here's what's going on. And and that and then just a couple weeks later, then I was like in a studio and
Wow.
with a huge orchestra, like live orchestra there. I was in the room with them. It was such a once in a lifetime kind of experience. And the beautiful thing about it was I got to watch the sequence as I was singing, because they already had it cut together. And knowing obviously the where that song comes from within this storyline, it being a song that Data has sung, and like that a version being so iconic, and it being this very hauntingly beautiful twist to kind of round it all out. It was just, it couldn't not be emotional.
Yeah.
And then just watching the sequence as it like basically having this kind of funeral for Data in that moment, and watching it. There were moments where I had to stop watching because I was getting too emotional and I was starting to like cry while I was singing, and I was like, oh, my throat's getting tight. But it really did help though, watching it, because certain moments swell with what's happening, and it really like informed what I was doing. But it was just such an honor to do that and really kind of pay homage to that character in the way that I could, you know.
Yeah. Well, it was very, I remember watching that with my wife, who kind of like, she'll watch Trek with me if I like rub her shoulders while we're watching it.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of the, you know,
Right.
And she appreciates it to a degree, but she's not gonna, you know, she's gonna watch Suits or whatever, you know.
Classic.
So she watched that whole first season with me and loved it. And so I was like, hey, this is cool. I don't have to rub her shoulders while we're watching this, you know? But although I probably should, but anyways, I digress. But when
The
that
two women
when that
said
whole
right at the same time.
I receive it. I hear it. I receive it. I'm going to apply it. Okay. But hearing that song, and then I was like, I got to look up who's singing that. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's her. Like, are you kidding me? Like, both my wife and our mouths were just open. Like, that is one of the most, just like I said, hauntingly beautiful, and haunting in a good way.
Yeah.
Beautiful renditions of that song and how it was composed and performed, and your voice
Jeff
to it was just
made a beautiful version of that. I mean, it went with what it was, scoring so well. And I'm so grateful that I got to do that.
So let me ask you, what one thing, or maybe one or two things, do you wish people knew about you, or things that you don't get to talk much about when we have these interviews?
Oy.
That's a very open-ended question.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess I have like talked about like the art that I do.
A little bit.
I,
You and I talked a little bit about it at Trek Long Island. You mentioned acrylic pouring, which I have.
Yes, yeah, you
There
showed
we
me.
go. There's
So
my.
cool.
Yeah.
But so I've talked a bit about it, but I think, I don't know, I guess something to know about me. I don't know. I just turned 25.
Wow.
And I'm, obviously very, very young, and I have a lot of life ahead of me. But I'm definitely kind of in a moment where I'm very, very like just appreciating everything that has happened so far. I'm very lucky to have lived as much life as I have already. And I think at the end of the day, something that you don't always talk about is like I'm an actor, and people see my face on TV sometimes, and not so much. It's not like I'm being mobbed by people and like people know my name all the time, but like it is definitely weird to be in a public sphere of sorts. And I think people, sometimes fans, even with the best of intentions, can kind of forget that you're human. And I don't know, that's something that I think is worth just talking about and remembering, is that everyone is human. And we're all going through things, and we're all like learning as we go, and we've all done good things and also made mistakes, and for anyone to be like kind of like I don't think anyone would want to be like pigeonholed as the person they were when they were 20.
Right.
Sure.
Definitely not.
But
No,
I think that's a kind of a thing that I'm working on, is having more grace for that, and like working on that mentally, where that kind of takes a toll. And I think that's something that is just worth noting and saying, that we're all
and
human.
I think something similar to that is true. No matter, what, we have a similar issue at work where sometimes you meet somebody in one context.
Yeah.
And you never think about them another way. It's you meet them with a certain skill set, and okay, this person is that kind of an engineer, and that's all they do. And 10 years go by, and no, they do other things too. So I think there's some similarity there, that you're not the same person that someone might have first been exposed to you as.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, my experience is a very specific one, but I think with everyone, it's like we're all very vast human beings. Like we contain a lot of different things, and I think just remembering that we're all just humans trying to do life.
With the capacity to grow and to learn.
Exactly.
And I think you said a word that's really important to me, and that was just have grace.
Yeah.
I mean, we need more of that, especially in the United States. I think we are short supply of that sometimes.
Yeah.
Whether it's in our politics, whether it's whatever with our neighbors, for crying out loud, So
you notice it just in interacting with people, like people are a lot more willing to kind of fight lately.
Right.
I think in the last few years, and I think so have I. I've been like, oh, I'm on guard. I need to be on guard because people want to fight.
Right.
And remembering that's not.
Yeah.
What if we all just were having grace with each other and just.
Yeah. It'd be beautiful. And by the way, we're very happy because our friend Steve finally arrived all the way from Deep Space Nine. I think he was hanging out a little too long at Quark's Bar, though.
Maybe he's having some Klingon food. You never know.
Actually, Isa, nice to make your acquaintance.
Yes, hi.
I was at Children's Hospital. I was donating platelets.
Wow. That's amazing.
Got to help the kids at the hospital.
Yeah.
What now?
I'm just kidding, Brian. I'm just messing with you. I said, how do you feel now, Brian?
Yeah. Wow, have grace with people, Ryan.
I'm just
But
messing.
we can
Having
make
a
fun of
go.
our friends, so
Yes.
we
Oh,
do
yeah,
a little
and,
bit.
sure.
and I'm not going to ask you to recap everything you've been talking about. I will happily do what I love to do, which is to listen to our podcasts when they're released, because
Yeah.
often short-term memory makes me forget what we discussed, and I go,
Oh, yeah.
that was an interesting conversation. So I'll get to know you that way from that point on.
Yep. Well, we were, I think, just getting close to finishing up. I think
Okay.
kind of following that last conversation, the one, I guess, final question related to that is, so because you mentioned that you, appreciate right now that you are on the young side of life. So with so much to look forward to, do you think that this is your forever career, or can you see yourself doing other things someday?
I mean, like I said in the beginning, I definitely know for sure that I am a creative person and I kind of need creativity in my life. But I don't know if like acting is always going to be my only creative outlet. I mean, I have kind of a history of finding other things. I mean, I'm like a hobby person. I love to pick up a hobby. I like right now I'm on miniatures. I'm making miniatures and I love it.
Really?
But no, I think I'm definitely very interested in continuing acting. I love it. That was my first love. I also love singing. I am working on, writing my own stuff to eventually release that. But that's giving myself time with that because, it's nerve-wracking and getting used to that and finding your voice is a long or just a specific kind of journey and a special journey. But I want to kind of get on the other side of things too. I want to be producing, eventually directing. Because especially in this business and, being a mixed person and also seeing my father who is also an actor, being a person of color in this industry, it's a very complicated, loaded thing. And I've witnessed just a lot as I've worked more, how much influence you actually have behind the camera. And yes, there's so much good to be done when people see your face and hey, being someone that like, when I get little kids who are like Filipino who come up to me and they're like, oh my God, I saw you and I saw myself. And like, that is so special. And that is, oh my God, that's like why I do it. But when I really when I have some hard days on set and maybe there's some injustices going on and I look around and see who actually can make differences and make changes for the better, those are the positions I want to eventually be in. So I can be someone making that kind of change.
That makes sense.
So I do definitely, I want to continue. I have a lot of friends who, have recently gotten out of college and they're filmmakers and I'm excited to continue to be more on the ground floor of things and be helping people create just being a part of it, just being around it. Like, I don't need to be in it. I just want to be around it and be around people creating so that I know the people creating stuff now who are eventually going to be Oscar nominees or whatever. These are the people that are doing good and are being helped, are being served in ways that maybe they're not right now. And yeah, that's the goal.
That's awesome. Well, I think that's a wonderful place to wrap up and leave off. Anyone want to say something final to Isa, or Isa, do you have anything else you want to say before we get off the stage?
Anyone have anything?
Okay. Cool.
Well,
okay.
Matt,
I just
thank
can't
you so
wait to
much.
see what you have coming up.
Yeah,
That's
I know.
all.
I wish I
Yes.
could talk about.
Yeah.
I just, hey, whoever's listening, keep your eyes peeled. Stuff is happening. I just can't talk about it yet. But
We
But
will.
even when you
Okay.
but even when you write what you want to write, and you need a place to promote it,
hey,
Yep. You know where
No,
to
we are.
come.
Thank you guys so much for having me on. This was really lovely.
Awesome. Well, so everyone, I think that wraps up our fantastic conversation with the incredibly talented Isa Briones. We've, I think, unraveled some of the complexities of playing multiple characters in Star Trek Picard. And we talked briefly about the world of Goosebumps. So we'll have to talk about that again like next time. But, Isa's journey is a testament to her versatility and dedication to her craft. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing your fascinating experiences. And then to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Big Sci-Fi Podcast. As always, if you want to interact or chat with us, join our Facebook group or find us on Instagram and Twitter. Or you can always drop us a note at thebigscifipodcast@gmail.com. I have to give a shout out, as always, to the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. We are very proud to be part of the Trek Geeks Network. And remember that you'll find us and some of our fellow podcasts at the aforementioned Trek Long Island this May/June. So everyone get their tickets now. Until we meet again, remember to extend kindness and understanding to all beings across the cosmos and a little grace. Live long and prosper, and join us once more for the next cosmic journey on the Big Sci-Fi Podcast.
My heart is heavy as I look around the world. People are hurting, even the boys and little girls. Our sons and daughters deserve much more than this. We must rise up, make a change today. Let them hear us say we're a family. We must hold on to the ones we love and thank God above for the air we breathe. It's time we think like a family and make a new reality. My heart is grieving for the homeless ones tonight. The children see it while the parents walk on by. Our friends and neighbors deserve much more than this. We must rise up, make a change today. Let them hear us say we're a family. We must hold on to the ones we love and thank God above for the air we breathe. We must rise up, make a change today. Let them hear us say we're a family. We must hold on to the ones we love and thank God above for the air we breathe. It's time we think like a family, make a new reality. I don't have all the answers, but something happens when we work together. Maybe change will come much faster if we open our hearts to each other. I think it's time to learn what it's like to really love our neighbor. I don't have all the answers, but something happens when we work together. Oh, maybe change will come much faster if we open our hearts to each other. Gotta love our neighbor. We must rise up, make a change today. Let them hear us say we're a family. like a family, make a new reality.